You're listening to World of Empowerment Radio, your station for practical spirituality in a changing world. And here are your hosts, Aingeal Rose and Ahonu.
You are very welcome. I am Ahonu, and this is my lovely Aingeal Rose. And today we're bringing a special report. We're going into the Akashic Records, primarily because we have had a lot of questions lately that are asking about the state of the world. And we have done several of these over the last number of years, especially beginning in 2012, you remember, Aingeal Rose, where people were concerned about what was going on. They were concerned about the future. And that's what's driving this questions of the Akashic Records today. And we've got a number of questions lined up already that we are desirous of finding answers from source, as opposed to from governments or politicians or wisdom's keepers or from anybody. We want this directly from source. And so Aingeal Rose and I are going to ask these questions, and we're going to get the answers from source. The kinds of questions that we're going to ask today are about what does source have to say about the world right now, as opposed to last week or next week, right now. And does how we feel about the world from day to day have anything to do with our bodies and how our bodies are feeling? This is an important question too, because we've got a lot of people who are saying they're not feeling well, or their bodies are telling them this, or they're tired, or they're sleeping too much, or they're not sleeping at all that kind of stuff that's going on. And we want to know about the frequency of human consciousness. Is it increasing or decreasing? And we want to know the causes of the feelings of depression and helplessness and hopelessness. We're going to ask about the chemicals that were recently injected to a large number of the population. And we want to know about predictions also, like the power of predictions and what's behind them. And then we want to know about our own trust in God and in life. So, Aingeal Rose, we did take the opportunity to go into the Akashic Records before we started. What did you see? What was your initial impression?
Well, let's lump it in with the first question.
Okay, all right. The first question is, what does Source have to say about the world right now?
All right, just give me a minute here. So what I'm hearing Source say is that we're in a state of flux. I'm seeing movement like all over the earth. So everybody's coming and going. People are getting to new places. People are leaving old places. They're all they're like animals scurrying about in a forest, trying to find the right spot. Okay, so I feel like everybody feels that we're in some sort of movement, or we're in some sort of state of flux. And when I first opened the records this morning, I first saw emerald green light, which of course is the color of healing. That seemed to be the predominant color on the planet. And then I saw this rejuvenating yellow-red color. And it didn't feel negative. It felt like a rejuvenation was going on from the sun. That the light coming from the sun was activating people. It was regenerating people. It was regenerating the earth. And then I saw a little bit of blue after that, which of course is the color of, in its best expression, it's the color of peace. But it was small in comparison to the other colors, so I feel like that's down the road a bit. But when you ask about the state of the world, I guess what I feel like is like it's a bunch of bees buzzing around, like there's all this hive activity going on, because the world is shifting and people are feeling it. They're feeling changes in the earth itself, feeling changes in themselves. So it's like everybody's a bit at a state of unrest. I don't want to use the word agitation because not everybody's agitated. But, when you shake up something or you disturb a beehive, everybody starts, they all start moving around really quickly. So it feels like people feel that within themselves. They know things are moving and changing, and they're uncertain about it. And I know I'm answering the question in relation to people, but when we asked it, that's what Source basically said, that the earth is going through a type of regeneration and movement and adjusting and shifting. And this is how it's affecting people.
Yeah, okay. Well, when we first went into the records, I did see also like a star influence, interestingly enough. And I don't fully understand what that means. Maybe we can just talk about that for a moment. And there seems to be light coming from the right side. And any idea what that might mean? Or the star influence even?
What did it feel like to you?
Well, it felt like, you know, we're here on Earth and we think we're the be all and end all of everything. And it seemed to me that this star influence was like there's bigger stuff going on that we're not aware of. That's the kind of way I felt it. There's bigger stuff that's going on cosmically, and that is having its effect. Perhaps that's what you mentioned about the sun. Maybe that could be the star that I saw, perhaps.
I don't know, I didn't see it.
Yeah, no, I'm just trying to figure it out because this is happening live right now. And certainly there was some influence from stars outside, bigger than us. And I mean bigger than our physical bodies. I don't mean bigger than consciousness. I mean, it's all consciousness. But it felt like as if that we believe ourselves to be so small and under the influence of all these things, when in fact this is all part of an enormous unfolding. That's the impression I got from that. Okay, next question. Does how we feel about the world from day to day have anything to do with how our bodies are feeling?
The reason, let me just explain the reason for this question, because there's many days that Ahonu knows that I wake up and I wake up depressed, or I wake up just with worry. Other times I wake up at 1 or 2 in the morning and I can't get back to sleep. A lot of people have been saying that.
Yeah.
But this morning I was noticing how calm I felt. Okay, and I thought, well, do I feel calm because I had a good night's sleep? You know, about the world in general, I felt peace.
Right.
So I'm wanting to know, like, the moods from day to day.
Are they affected by the planet?
Is it affected on how your body feels from day to day, or is it something else? That's the reason for the question.
Right. Okay, so let me ask a question so we're clear. Does how we feel about the world from day to day have anything to do with how our bodies are feeling?
Well, sources saying that it can, because what's happening with the energies today is that it is stimulating people's biology, okay, which means it's bringing up old, deeply rooted things in people. So what it says is that, yes, in a way, yes, because we're being stimulated by solar energies and star energies, as you perceived, and it's triggering old memories in us. It's triggering fears in us, stuff that's been embedded beneath the surface in our own bodies, in our cells, let's just say, or in our consciousness. And all of that seems to be coming up, and it would behoove us all to take a few minutes and write about that in the morning, in terms of asking yourself, what do these feelings mean to you? Because then you'll find out what's underneath the surface of them. You'll find out, are you feeling something in the world? Or are you in touch with an old memory? Or something that made you sad in your life? Or is it more universal than that? But I think what Source is saying is you need to inquire about it, because it could be in a bunch of things. It could be actually a feeling of what the movement is like on the planet, but it could also be your own consciousness kind of bringing stuff to the surface. So it's important to journal about those in the moment before you get up, if you possibly can, to clear it in yourself, because some of this stuff that comes up is coming up to be let go of. And these old feelings of depression and worry, I'm listening to my own words, by the way, have a cause underneath them, but if you never inquire, you don't really know what in particular is coming up for you. So it's saying, you know, write about that, because a lot of it does have to do with the condition of your body, what's in your cells, and the fact that these cosmic influences are bringing things up to the surface for people.
So in a way, there's nothing to be afraid of. Like if we were to write about them, journal about them, and
Mhm.
get to the root cause of them, they would lose their power, they would lose their potency.
Yeah, because that's what happens when you journal. You unravel
Right.
energy.
Yeah.
So it's nothing to be afraid of. I know it feels fearful when you
Sure.
wake up feeling like that, or you're having all these thoughts in the middle of the night. But what Source is really saying is he's not saying there's nothing to be afraid of. It's saying that a lot's happening, like we
Right.
already talked about in the world, and it's up to us now to kind of get a handle on it with our consciousness and look into what is it we're feeling. Where's this coming from? Is it something old in me, or is it something going on the planet? And to always remember that when you journal like that you can always change your mind about whatever you're seeing. You can rewrite it to be something positive for you, or just let it go.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, next question. Is the frequency of human consciousness increasing or decreasing?
Guess whose question this was?
That's my question. Yeah, and let me explain where that's coming from.
Okay, good.
Because, like, we get a lot of questions from people, and I'm kind of reflecting over the last 15 years maybe, and it's like as if there's more, there's a perception of a growth of awareness, like what people might call an awakening. More and more people are waking up. But at the same time, there seems to be a kind of a parallel growth of fear that we're
Mhm.
just been talking about. And I don't know at this point in time, like, are they both equal? Like, is the growth of awareness happening faster than the growth of fear and trepidation about the future? Or are they neck and neck? Or, that's where my question's coming from.
Well, what I'm hearing from Source is that the awakening is occurring in a much bigger percentage than the amount of fear in people. That even though there's a segment of the world that's fearful about all the changes we've already talked about, the majority of the people are having more eureka moments. They're having more awakening moments. And I feel joy around that. I feel like the people who are waking up are happy about what they're discovering. So I think that the consciousness is changing in a good direction right now.
Okay, that's good.
And I think the important thing Source is saying about fear is that it's kind of using that word with stagnation, that fear is the result of a stagnation in consciousness. So again, it's saying, this is the time to start inquiring into where the fear is coming from, what's going on with you. Because this is really about knowing yourself and becoming more conscious in your everyday life and in your feelings. The emotional body is probably the biggest aspect of us that needs cleansing. We seem to be a reactive species, if you know what I mean. And it's time to start looking at those reactions and where they're coming from.
Okay, our next question. And it's kind of related to the discussion as it's unfolding now. What is the cause of feelings of worry and depression upon awakening?
Okay, yeah, we can. Let's see if it has anything else to
Yeah.
say. Again, I feel like, first of all, it's saying some of it is hormones, interesting. But a lot of it too is picking up things that are going on cosmically, like you mentioned. Okay, because it does bring a feeling of, because there's so much uncertainty about it. Remember when I started and I said, Source is showing me this big movement and all this activity of people scurrying around.
Mm-hmm.
And I think because there isn't certainty around the movement in terms of where is it actually taking people, and some of it too is an old self that is dying within you that you really need to take a look at. Okay, in terms of how able are you to release an old self and move along with these new currents, because they don't feel bad in and of themselves, but they do feel that they do cause shifting and changing, not only on the planet but inside people. So this is all very new. It's a new wave, in other words. So how does that new wave sit with you, in terms of, you have an old self, you're being asked to get out of stagnation and let go of an old self that doesn't really serve your highest, or it doesn't bring out the highest in you. It's not allowing you to use your higher abilities It could be habits that we have, or ways we've been living for a number of years that really just, they're stagnant compared to this new energy that I'm seeing moving. And so we're in that in between. We haven't arrived at a certain future. So I think some of that is how these energies are playing out on a person's body. Okay.
Okay.
Let me just use this example. When you have a full moon, for example, and that's the time, of course, when people get the most reactive.
Well, it certainly affects the emotions.
The emotions. Yeah. People's emotions come to the surface of the cells, and that's why they wig out. The pressure of that makes them wig out or worry. So it's the same type of thing. Same type of, like I'm seeing currents moving and changing, and people can't be who they were. It just doesn't seem to work anymore. So it's how able are you really to let go of an old self? And it could be very joyful, actually, letting go of a new self and integrating a new self, because when I started and I saw those energies of the sun, they looked incredibly dynamic and alive. So it's how well can you integrate a whole new self into a being that has been holding a lot of old things.
What I hear you saying is, don't be afraid of these changes, because
you don't need to be afraid, but you do need to cooperate with the clearing out process.
Gotcha. Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So deep self-inquiry and not be afraid of what comes up. In other words,
exactly. Or look into it. I mean, it sort of seems to really be drilling home the fact that we don't inquire enough into ourselves, and it's time to be conscious, and it's time to be aware of who you've been, what's changing inside of you, what are you being asked to release,
right,
and making room for something new. Because the truth is our cells are cluttered with old memories and old ways of being for centuries. I mean, your past lives are in your cells. There's all sorts of things. So it's like you could be at a precipice where you're about to move into a dynamic new you. And the old self is not comfortable with that. It's dying. So some of the grief and depression we feel is an old self dying.
Yes.
But if we cooperate with it and move along with it, this can be an extremely joyful time.
Wow, interesting. Well, I'm sure there'll be a lot of people delighted to hear that, because there's no doubt that there is that sense of trepidation and uncertainty and fear of the future. And it's probably also why people are hanging on to predictions, and that's one of our questions. We won't ask it just yet, but that's probably why, because they want
certainty.
They want certainty, yes, around everything. Okay, so this next question has to do with the recent events that started in 2020, and everybody knows what we're talking about. We're not going to mention the war, as they say. But the question is, will the chemicals that were injected into a large number of the population recently affect the outcome of human consciousness?
Well, what I'm hearing is people will have to fight harder, okay, to maintain themselves, because this is it's a huge dose unnatural things into the body. A lot of them not supporting the actual immunity of the body, okay, the way the body works. And if we're honest, the body's been a pretty perfect system thus far. Imperfect in other ways, but in terms of its ability to heal and overcome diseases and things like that, it's a pretty remarkable instrument.
Right.
So yeah, because I feel like these chemicals have kind of what's the word I'm seeing? I'm seeing like all of a sudden they've been injected with substances that haven't supported the immune system and actually have made it have to fight harder to maintain its balance. And this is affecting people very differently, as we've seen ourselves. Some no problem, others, big problems. Okay? And that all depends on your individual biology, of course. But in terms of the future, I do think there's help. I mean, don't forget, when I opened up the records, I saw emerald green. So I do feel there's being a lot of healing light sent to the planet right now. And it's not just the planet, it's all the people in it. So I feel like we're getting help,
right,
to help combat all these things. So some could come out to be more enlightened than they were before. Okay, more awake. In other words, if you have something put in your body and all of a sudden you have horrible effects from it, that's an awakening in and of itself.
Right.
You know, that can be an awakening, a trigger for people to say, to start questioning what they're saying yes to and why.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because we've had members of our own family that have accepted this thing out of fear, and their big issue is, I can't go back, like it's done, so I can't go back, and they feel this sense of helplessness and hopelessness because they've done something that they now perhaps regret. So what you're saying is, it need not be a regretful thing, because it may spark its own awakening.
Well, what I'm feeling from Source too is it's saying, don't forget that you have a higher self. Don't forget you have your connection to Source. You can ask for higher help and higher intervention into your life at any time.
Right.
You're not completely helpless with this. Your own self physically may not be able to handle the onslaught of it itself.
Right.
But ask for higher. That's what higher beings are there for. They're there to help.
Right.
Okay, and that could take the form of somebody coming to you with a particular piece of information that helps you combat it. You could hear about something you could take that offsets it or strengthens your immune system. It might just be a sense of peace that you get knowing that all is well from God.
Right.
Because don't forget that these chemicals they're not God. Okay, they're not the devil either. They're just what they are.
Mm-hmm.
And you can direct them as well. You can talk to them and you don't have to hate them. You can just say, please forgive me, I forgive you. Do the Ho'oponopono thing with them.
Perfect.
Okay, because anything that exists is alive in a certain way. And what I've seen thus far when people ask particular questions is that most things in this world don't have an intention to harm. Forces may take them and use them to harm people, but they themselves don't have a potential to harm. So in that case, you could ask those chemicals, could they transform into something that promotes your awakening, that
right, that
powerful. Shifts you in a way that wakes up part of you instead of destroys part of you, if you know what I mean. We're not powerless like we believe we are, okay? But use what Source tells you. I mean, Source is a benevolent source. It's not out to kill you. So it'll help in any way it can, as long as you cooperate with it.
Yeah, good one. Okay. All right.
And I just want to also say for those others who judge those who've had you need to stop that, because that judgment weakens people, period.
Right.
And you're not helping them by getting angry at what they've done or being disappointed in them.
Yeah.
Well,
that's both sides of the coin, really. The ones who have done it are also judging the ones who haven't. True. So it's all this judgment has to stop.
It really has to stop.
Yeah, because, okay. Just let me pop in real quick. You mentioned Ho'oponopono. A lot of people who are aware and awake and conscious are also aware of the Ho'oponopono principles of forgiveness. But for those who don't, you can email us, text us, contact us somehow, and we'll send you information about Ho'oponopono. It's a simple little prayer of forgiveness, and it is very, very powerful. We also have a little bit of music that we found that we can send you, which is really lovely to listen to and promotes that kind of forgiveness of self and others. Wonderful little thing.
You can also find a lot of Ho'oponopono music on YouTube.
Yes, absolutely. Just search for it.
And sung beautifully, by the way.
Yeah, search for it and you'll find a lot of information. And do practice it because it is wonderful. Okay, 2 questions now, which we'll come to real quick. What is the energy behind predictions, and why do we put so much energy into them?
Yes, and this is part of what's motivating our call today. Is there's been numerous predictions coming up about June, and this is going to happen, and that's going to happen. And we thought we'd check in with Source about it because people are in distress about some of the things they're hearing. Okay, so just a second. So Source is telling me to remember what it said in the beginning, that we're in a positive movement of change. Okay, and this has to do with cosmic forces and the sun, which is bigger than us. This is a movement that's going on cosmically that is a movement in a positive direction. So in that movement, it's going to energize, awaken, regenerate people, but it's also going to bring up the drudge. And don't be looking outside yourself. This is what Source is saying about predictions. This is why it's talking so much about inquiring into yourself and not falling prey to different predictions. This person says that, that person says this. We're in a positive movement of change, and we need to flow with it, and we need to work with it in order to, become the planet that it's trying to have us become. So what's behind predictions is usually people looking outside themselves for some sort of an answer. So age-old problem, isn't it, of look everywhere except inside. And some people are already fearful and they just want validation that their fear is got a cause. But the truth is predictions are just momentary. Okay, they're not, moment to moment, they shift and they change. And if one day comes out, somebody predicts a date and it doesn't turn out to be true, they'll just create another one and give some excuse about why the old one didn't work. Okay, but the true point is that it's a temptation to see things outside yourself. When the Source really wants is for you to be cooperating with this new movement, become conscious with it, become a conscious citizen of yourself, of the planet, become more powerful in your own being, know what you're made of. So it's not poo-pooing predictions, it's basically saying in this movement that we're in, we are going to see cleansings go on. This wave is going to kind of move through a lot of things, but I don't feel any fear about it at all. I feel calm about it. I feel like it's on its way to a particular goal, and that goal is peace and regeneration.
Super. Okay, our final question then. Why don't we trust God that life is good and that we will survive and be happy, and that the final outcome is glorious?
What I hear Source saying is it's not God we don't trust, it's ourselves. That we're an insecure human beings, in other words. We basically insecure. We're not sure about anything really. When things happen, we don't make a connection between cause and effect, okay?
Right.
We just think everything is separate. We feel like we're at the mercy of forces outside ourselves. And Source is reminding us none of this is true. Everything is created by the mind. You're in a planet of mind expressions. So there's collective mind, there's personal mind. So it's not God we don't trust, it's that we don't know ourselves well enough.
Right.
To know what we're doing or to feel safe in our own being.
Yeah.
And all of that can be shifted, like it says, but it is saying, like, you have to go within because God is within you. I'm within you is what I hear him say. Him, he, she. Don't get caught up in the language.
Don't get caught up in that, yeah.
Okay, but it's within you. And
that's an example of the limitation of the human
language.
To be able to express something that is enormously beautiful. Yeah.
But I think mostly what it's saying is we're people that have given our power to outside forces too much. It's the whole authority problem that we all have. And even God is seen as an authority who punishes and who does all this stuff from ancient religions. So in order to know a different God, for example, you have to know you, because you are made of God. You are God. That whole I am statement is a fact.
Yeah.
I am this, you are God. But to really know that, and you'll find that when you do inquire into yourself and you unravel some of your belief systems, that you're just as loving as Source. Source is loving. I've been in these records since for a long time, and I have never once encountered a judgmental source.
Right. Do you know, Aingeal Rose, I have to make a comment about that, because in the past, whenever you hear, and I know this happened to me because I grew up in Holy Catholic Ireland, I was an altar boy and all that stuff, and to entertain the thought for a moment that I am God.
Blasphemy.
It's blasphemous. Like, seriously, that's the guilt that we're brought up to believe in, that, you know, we've no power, and how dare you consider for a second that you have power. You know?
Right, or you could,
Yeah.
or that you could be defined as a creature of source.
Yes, or that you could be as creative in any way. In other words, this was the methodology of keeping you down.
Keeping you fearful.
I fell into it. I remember that feeling of guilt, and that I was going to be punished because I entertained the thought for a moment that, gosh, if God has created everything, that means he's created me, and that means that God must be part of me and I must be part of God. And I remember the guilt attached to it, you know, that I was separate and that I had to fight and struggle and prove myself to God, and if I messed up somewhere along the line, I was going to be punished. And of course, this is the belief system of a lot of people. So I understand how, when you say, you know, that we are God and that we are that I am presence, how there can be a struggle even in adapting to that possibility.
And I think the point here really, though, is to become your I am presence.
Yeah.
How do you become your I am presence? And it really is a process of purification. And that means you have to clear out all the old beliefs that tell you that you're sinful or that you're bad, or
you're guilty.
You know, you have to take responsibility for the content of your mind and inquire into what you do believe, because certainly being able to love yourself and believe in your own worth is really a big thing.
It is a big thing
that people have to do.
You know, I remember I used to go for, I still do, walks quite a lot. And I found it necessary for myself, not only to use that Ho'oponopono technique that we talked about, but also to say an affirmation. And I know people sometimes now condone or dismiss affirmations, depending. But they are helpful to get you to a place where you won't need them anymore. But one of the things that I needed at the time was the affirmation that said, I am innocent and I am forgiven. Boy, did I have difficulty with that. Like to imbibe it enough to arrive at the point where I could entertain believing it. But I had to start somewhere. I had to start by saying,
it's also
I'm innocent
being
and
able
forgiven.
to see everyone else the same.
Right.
You know, that choice
right.
to love yourself and let yourself off the hook.
Yes.
Has to be the same choice in the way you see everything.
For everybody and everything.
Okay, and don't forget too, we did put videos out on our experience of Chaco Canyon when we went.
Oh, we did. Yeah.
And I'll just bring that up because it relates. The feeling that we had at Chaco Canyon. We thought we were going there to
fix something.
To activate the place or to help it, you know, come back alive. And it turns out it was totally alive. And what was there was the love of God was in the land. And how you have that experience is you just feel this extreme happiness and joy. It's an exhilaration. It's a feeling that you're loved, that all is well. There's no fear whatsoever. And you'll always be well. And I think that's something we need to remember too, that no matter how the wave manifests itself in any given moment, all is well. We're well. We're, you know, and on a practical level, of course, going through changes like this, when people tell you, you know, you need to have some stores of food and water, those are just practical, smart things that, you know, our grandparents used to do that. They all had root cellars. They canned food for the winter. Mm-hmm. You know, they weren't silly. If you watch nature and you watch animals, you watch squirrels go around and hunt for nuts and they bury them for the winter.
Common sense.
And yeah, they're common sense, practical things. They're not fearful things. So there is a degree of practicality and common sense that we have to have during these times. And when we have had power outages, we've had earth changes, we've had floods. So it's kind of like do some preparation, not out of fear, just out of it makes common sense to do so.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, but in the big picture, You know, we are moving to a more awakened world. We're moving to a more joyful and peaceful world. The energies of Source are sending down the emerald green ray, which is an incredibly healing ray of light. It's surrounding the planet. We have help. We'll never be bereft of help. You are your own help. You have a higher self. You have a brain that can receive higher knowledge. So it's important to take care of the negative stuff when it shows up. Really, don't try to cover it up either and say, well, I just doesn't exist for me. If you're feeling fear, look into it. Write about it. Ask yourself, what does it mean to you? What does it feel like? Unravel it in your body. And this is one of the ways you can assist with the transformation that's going on in the world.
Yeah, beautiful. Okay, wonderful note to finish on. So let me do a quick summary of what we've covered. We asked these important questions. And initially, the emerald green light was what Aingeal Rose saw, and that was had to do with healing and rejuvenation and regeneration. She also saw a small blue light, which was a kind of precarious piece, I suppose you could call it, that was further ahead, but nonetheless ahead. We talked about...
to do first, in other words.
Yes, a lot of self-work, inner work. State of flux was what came out of that first question about what's happening in the world right now. State of flux, that people are trying to find their spot. A lot of change and unrest. Not necessarily a negative thing, not necessarily a bad thing. People are finding their place inwardly and outwardly. People are moving and shifting inwardly and outwardly. All that is actually good if you can see the bigger picture of it. And Aingeal Rose mentioned then, in response to the second question about how our bodies are feeling, that our bodies and biologies are stimulated by world events, but that is bringing up stuff and triggering fears in us. And these fears should be analysed by journaling to take its potency away and restore our integrity and our conscious awareness.
And your ability to move forward and integrate new energies.
Yes. Yeah. And then the next question was about the frequency of consciousness, whether it was increasing or decreasing. Awakening is happening faster than fear in the world. That's a wonderful thing to know.
Mm-hmm.
And that consciousness is growing as unfolding. And it is time to inquire into our fears. And the emotional body is in need of clearing and cleansing. You mentioned about especially the emotional body, isn't that right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Some change, or some worry. I'm sorry, can't read my own writing. I was writing down so fast because you were covering so much so quickly. Some worry relates to hormones, but other worries are cosmic in nature, and some is the old self dying. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
The question about the chemicals injected into the body, people will have to fight harder to grow in consciousness due to the recent unsupportive chemicals that were injected into the body. But don't forget, you have a higher self that is pure and perfect and can help you. And that very interference on a chemical level can trigger its own awareness and its own awakening. So again, there should be no fear attached to it. And you can ask these chemicals to support your own awakening. That was an interesting point.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. About predictions. Predictions can cause distress, but remember, we're in a positive movement of change. The future will energize, awaken, and restore us, but we need to work with it. And from it, we need to work on ourselves. We need to look within rather than outside for the answers. Predictions are momentary and will continue to tempt us to see something that's outside ourselves. That was a beautiful explanation of predictions, because there is that temptation to kind of create something that's not there.
Right. Well, people want to know and they want to be certain, but Source is just reinforcing that comes from within you, comes from knowing yourself.
The certainty is inside, yeah. And the question then, the last question about why don't we trust God? It's not God that we don't trust, it's ourselves.
Mm.
Oh boy, what a hammer statement that was.
Right.
It's not God that we don't trust, it's ourselves. Remember, you have help inside yourself. You are loved, honored, and protected, and all is well, always.
And you're not powerless. And if you start clearing out your consciousness, you'll receive information when you need it. Okay.
Beautiful. Okay, that's it from myself, Ahonu,
Right.
and from
To be
Aingeal Rose.
continued. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, and blessings, and bye for now.
You can subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, and on our website at worldofempowerment.com.
Don't miss an episode. Hit the subscribe button now.